Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Bright Reality Media interview. I'm really looking forward to hearing the perspective and the experience of our guest, Margaret Dempsey. Welcome, Margaret. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Max. Thank you.
Margaret lives in England, and I live in the United States. So we're going to somehow get through this massive cultural divide and have a conversation with each other. Margaret's background is being a Kundalini yoga teacher, and so I'm really interested to hear her perspective from coming from that side of spirituality to being a devotee of Adidas Samraj. So, Margaret, how did you, even getting interested in Kundalini yoga is not really that common in the world. So what led you to that part of your life?
Well, I'd always been interested in spirituality. In 1972, I was 9 and I was deeply unhappy 9-year-old because I had these very protruding teeth, buck teeth, front teeth. And I was called goofy and buck teeth and all kinds of things. And I was so unhappy. And I used to go to my mum and say, look, I want something done. And she said, well, when you're 12, we can get braces. 12, like I was 9, that seemed like an eternity away. And so I thought, well, I'm going to ask God, because I'm Catholic. My parents were staunch Catholics. I was brought to mass every Sunday, to God's house. And so I started to pray, very simple. Dear God, take my teeth. That was it. And then one day I was going to school, and I was sort of skipping along the pavements, and I had a coat on me, and I had my hands down deep into my pockets, and I tripped, and I couldn't get my hands out in time to save my face. And I went straight down on my
Oh,
face, and the 2 teeth came out on the pavement.
oh,
Now, it's hard to overestimate, the impressionable impact that has on a 9-year-old. For me, there was a God. There was, without any doubt, for me, there was a God. I knew it. And so then the next thing that sort of happened was when I was 11. A friend of my mother's gave me a book on fortune telling for my birthday, and you can just imagine how that went down with my Catholic mother. She wasn't best pleased, as we say in England, and she took it off me and said it was the work of the devil. But in that thing, I kind of saw a glimpse of another world. So I didn't, think anything about it. And then when I was 13, we moved to Ireland, to where my family were from, and I went into a Catholic boarding school, the Sisters of Mercy, or in my case, No Mercy. And it wasn't easy there either, because I had this English accent and I was gone back. But when I was very kind of lonely there, I used to kind of hear the words of the song, Lose Yourself in Me, and all this kind of thing, the Catholic songs that you'd sing at Mass and stuff like that. And so I just started to kind of think about them and everything, and that kind of got me through the loneliness of boarding school. And then I sort of came out, and then didn't really do anything spiritually at all, really, after that. And then I then came to England, and I suddenly discovered about liking the tarot and things like that. So I started to do that a little bit, and then I was interested in the Chinese hand analysis chirology, and I did that. So did the foundation diploma in that. And then the guy that was teaching that said to me, I'm starting a beginner's Buddhist course, would you like to come? And I was a bit like, well, what's Buddhism, because I was Irish Catholic, I didn't know. And he said, well, come along and see what you think about it, and we'll go from there. And so the very first night that I went there, I really felt a sense of coming home. I never really believed in the Catholic God that kind of rewarded you if you were good and punished you if you were bad, because it didn't really fit with my experience. I knew that I hadn't always been good, and yet my prayer with my teeth had been answered. So it didn't really twing with me, that. So when I heard the idea of karma, the Buddhist idea of karma, and your actions, determine the kind of life you had, that really resonated with me. I really felt that was more like the truth. So I did Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism for almost 10 years after that. And then in
with a teacher, or what was your what was
yeah,
your
it was with a Buddhist sect, if you like. This is where I feel that I have a lot of discrimination, because this Buddhist organization was called Mishindakai, was run by a guy. His first name was Terry Jukes, but he used to call himself Shifu Nagaboshi, and he had a temple in Norfolk. And while I loved all of the, Chinese kickboxing, the Kempo and the yoga and the studying of the, Abhidharma that we did, like, he was a very intellectual guy that led it. There was just something about the way that he was as a person. I was looking for the qualities of wisdom and compassion, for Buddhists, and he just seemed to be like a bully to me, something, and so I found it very hard to kind of reconcile what I knew or what I thought Buddhism was about with what he was about. And so I ended up leaving. I tried to leave 3 times, but when you're in something, it can be very difficult. But finally I left. And then a few years later, I found out that he was prosecuted, for abusing his students. And that was where my vow, if you like, in a way, of not having a guru really came from. Because I saw people just broken with that, that it was so difficult. I was okay because he never really took to me that much. I didn't really get on with him, but the others were, it was difficult. And I saw a lot of pain in that, and I like to feel that from seeing that I have that discrimination now.
Was it like manipulative behavior on his part?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it was. And I kind of saw, grown senpais, just become like little children around him, and I used to kind of speak out and say, does this not seem right to you? And they say, oh, it's your ego. Your ego needs to be, you need to kind of try, it's an egoic thing with you, was what I was being told. So, yeah, but I trusted my gut, and I just thought, no, this is not right. And I'm leaving.
And
So
you didn't feel any kind of that the teacher had any kind of realization or was enlightened in any capacity?
no, not really. I mean, he had us studying very high level Buddhist texts, like 7 Works of Vasubandhu by Stefan Anika, which is, it's quite high Dharma, in Buddhism. But no, in terms of he was a narcissist. He was a complete and utter narcissist. Yeah, and he hurt and damaged a lot of people, because he also had a charisma, especially with the Kempo. To watch him with the Kempo, he said he went to Okinawa and was trained by, there in the Okinawan, over in Okinawa. No one was ever able to kind of refute it or do it, but he had something when he did Kempo, with the student, you could see, and the black belt, and he did. But I was looking for something different. I was looking for compassion. I was looking, and I just didn't, So that was a very difficult time for me as well, trying to, go through that. So anyway,
How old were you about this time?
gosh, I suppose I'm in my 20s, was I? Yeah, about 20s, in my 20s. Yeah, because I did the Buddhism. So then that brought me up to 1996, and I just thought, rather than find another Buddhist organization, I don't really want to do that. And I think I've kind of done everything like that. But I started to kind of then like Gaia House, down in Devon, Christopher Titmus, the Vipassana down there. So I kind of went down there a couple of times and did a retreat, but just kind of as a retreatant, not as any teacher or with any teacher or anything, just that. So in 1996, I decided I'd go to India. And as a final thank you for what Buddhism had given me, I'd tracked the life of the Buddha around India. And I did that for 4 months. And I did a silent meditation retreat in Bodh Gaya, and I traveled around, and that was really that was good. The silent meditation retreat, 10 days. It's very, you know, that old adage where they say speech is silver, but silence is golden. You know, and I really got that from that retreat.
It's
So
interesting to
then,
see that.
yeah,
And
go ahead.
I was wrong actually at the beginning when I said this is the first interview we've done with someone who didn't see Adida physically. Of course, one of my closest friends, Nishi, did an interview with him. He also didn't see Adida, and he also went on a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat, which opened him up when I think he was 16 years old, opened him up to then being able to receive what when Adida came into his life, what Adida had to give. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's really interesting that you say that.
yeah, I think so, because the way I feel about it now is Adida has lived me through all of this. So, you know, that I have discrimination and that I can see. And also, you know, because of some of the things, because parallel to, you know, the Buddhism is also your own self-development and looking at your own patterns. And so I was doing that alongside by, you know, special transformational self-development. So the two were going on in tandem, but that was all Bhagavan. You know, I'm absolutely convinced it was Bhagavan. So anyway, what happened on the when I came back from India, I just didn't. I was drifting, and I didn't really know what I would do. And I went down to. I said I'd have a retreat in 1999, and I would go down to Gaia House, and the name of the retreat was called Awakening the Heart.
Hmm.
And on that retreat, I had an experience of energy, I suppose you could say. But because the Buddhism that I had done wasn't Tantra or wasn't Vajrayana, I didn't understand about energies in the body. I didn't recognize anything like that. But I knew that something had happened. So, but then it was very turbulent because things had changed and I really didn't understand it, and I didn't have any teacher. I didn't have anything like that, but I knew it was important to just keep a routine and keep my work and do all of that. So I did all of that. And yeah, then I, I then did the transformational self-development, because what I realized is, you know, from the age of 9, when that happened, I had sort of made a vow that I wanted to find whatever that was that answered my prayer to say thank you.
Hmm.
And I'd kind of really focused on the spiritual level of my development and not much on the emotional and mental. And I was quite stunted, you know, and not really balanced in that. So the transformational development, which I did then in 2005, really helped me, because one thing I've realized is you can't use the spiritual as sticking plaster to cover over some past hurts. You have to really be able to go and have a, you know, look at them and that. So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
did
There's a term called spiritual bypassing.
completely.
Yeah, that is all about that, trying to gloss over the what Adida would call the first 3 stages of life, um, developments and issues and all sorts of complexes, ordinary life stuff that you have to have kind of in order to be truly available to spiritual life. There's a lot of people in my experience I know who, especially in more kind of like the new age
Yeah.
brand of spirituality, that are not very grounded and developed as characters, and it's clear that it's just ungrounded. It's not a mature phase of spirituality that
No.
and Adida was always there's a quote in the Conscious Light film where James Steinberg is talking about that Adida's communication teaching about spirituality was from the ground up. You know, it's very real and tangible. It's not up in the air and an airy
No.
fairy. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And one of the things I had to go through with all of that was a lot of Oedipal stuff,
Hmm.
which when I look back on it, I played some of that out in the Buddhist organization I was in with some of the senpais, because I wasn't aware, I didn't know. But at the same time, if I had gone to Adida, I would have played out the same things there.
Mm.
So I couldn't have been a devotee at that time. It would not have worked. I would either have, been too childish or too adult, or walked out, So it was something I had to do and face up to. And so, so after that, then, when I saw that actually I had been using the spiritual to cover over past pain, I felt that I could once again look at the spiritual. I felt, I was authentic now. I wasn't, and that's always been important to me. And so I thought, well, what would I do? And I suddenly remembered back, to that energy. I thought, well, when it happened, I didn't know what it was, but over time, people, they had a label, they said Kundalini. So I thought, well, I kind of know that, so I could teach that, and I could have integrity with that. So I went and trained to be a yoga teacher, Kundalini yoga teacher. And I started to do that. And I was still doing the transformational self-development because it was really important to me. It was something that I got a lot of insights from, which I enjoyed getting. So I was teaching away then, but somehow the heart was still like, this isn't it. There's more there, and the mind was going, why don't you just keep quiet and just do that? And then in 2010, my dad died and left money, and I thought, well, I've always been interested in the phenomena of Kundalini, and there hasn't been very much about it, and a lot of people suffer with it as well. So I thought, well, let me put on a conference. I'll put on a conference here in Brighton, and I called it Kundalini Matters, Science, Psychosis, or Serpent, because they were the three things that...
It's a brilliant title.
That's what I thought. I was really pleased. I wish I could claim it, but it was somebody else who gave it to me. So I have to be honest about that. It wasn't me. But
when anyone asks, I'll tell them it was you. I don't know who this other person is.
So so I chose 2013 because it was the year of the snake. Mm-hmm. And Kundalini is the coiled serpent, and the caduceus and stuff. So I was all busy doing that, and I was teaching yoga, and I was really, really busy, and life was very, very full. And one night I was on Skype, and this guy who was also doing the transformational self-development with me in the same sort of group, if you like, he suddenly disappeared. He suddenly went, and nobody really knew why he had gone. And he just cut in on Skype one Sunday night and said to me, how are you? And I said, more a point, how are you? Where are you? And he said, I'm doing something different now. And he was really sort of cagey, and then he said, are you still living down in Hove? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, he said, I might come down for a visit. He said, and so I said, oh, okay. I thought it was this bit strange because I'd never even gone for a cup of coffee with you, never mind invite yourself down here. And but anyway, I said, okay. I said, let me know when you can do. And he said, yeah, I will. And so the conversation ended, and I thought, well, that's typical bloke. I'll probably hear in a couple of weeks or something. So I go to bed and wake up the next morning, and there's a text from him. I can come down today. I can stay tonight. And I can go the next day. And I was a bit like, what? But something just said to me, go at this. So at the time, my work could give duvet days where you could get holiday at short notice. So I phoned up and I said, can I have a day's holiday today? And they said, yeah, you can. So I texted him back. I said, fine. I said, here's my address. Text me when you're fairly close and that. So anyway, he arrived at the door, and it was really awkward because I didn't really know him. I knew him from the training, but I didn't even know to go for a cup of coffee or anything. And so anyway, he comes in the door, and I never forget it. And he had his rucksack, and he puts it down on the ground. And he said, I brought you a present. And I thought, oh, great, chocolates,
Diamond.
Wine, nice. Irish, yeah. And anyway, he dives into this rucksack, and he brings out these two books. And he said, this is the autobiography of my spiritual teacher. and this is my study book. And I just looked at them and I was like, oh my God, my inner groan. I don't know how he didn't hear it, because I just was like, this is the last thing I need. I am not interested in this. I left all this behind. I've done like that. No. And so anyway, he just left them on the hall table. So I brought them into the sitting room, left them on the table. And then all of a sudden, he just changed tack. He just said, right, I'm in Brighton, it's a lovely day. We'll go swimming in the sea. And I'm like, I've never swum in the sea. Well, you will swim in the sea. And I was like, no, I won't. I ended up swimming in the sea. So anyway, so this was, and I was kind of like, I was kind of thinking, gosh, did he really, never gave the books a second thought. They were gone as far as I was concerned, nothing. And so I started thinking about, I wonder, did he fancy me when we were in this training? And now he's really come down, and all this. So I started to kind of look at him in a different way, and so we kind of walked into Brighton, we kind of had a coffee, had a chat. And so I was kind of thinking, well, when we go back to the flat, we'll sit on the sofa and, maybe we'll get close. So there's all this kind of, fantasizing going on with me. Anyway, we get into the flat anyway. And the next thing he says to me, I'm really shattered. Where do I crash? And this is like completely all out character. So I have 2-bedroom flat. So I said to him, down there. So he said, gave me a big hug and he said, thanks, it's been lovely. And off he goes. And I'm so sort of bewildered and so bemused. And I go into my sitting room and there is the book with near listening with this white man leaning on a staff. And I'm like, well, I'm not, I'm not touching that anyway. And I just was drawn to the white book and I picked it up. And that's when I started to read all about conductivity and all of this. And it wasn't good, but there were answers in that book that I just had never even asked anybody. I'd never even formulated them. And they were just answered in that. And I couldn't believe it. And I just sat reading that book until about 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know.
Wow.
And when I went to bed, I just knew that this was someone who knew, who had just knew, my heart knew. And I couldn't wait for him to get up in the morning. I was like, I can't on the tin to say thank you and to apologize for being so off with him when he did bring them in and all of that. But he wasn't really willing to talk too much about it. He just said, in the book there's a card there and you can, find out a bit about it. And I still couldn't really figure out why he'd come down. And I still half thought, there might be something there between us. So we'd arranged, I was teaching yoga that night and he had a meeting that he had to go to. And we arranged that we would meet, we'd come back here and meet. And so I was doing the yoga and I was waiting for the class to finish. It was such a long class and I was waiting for it to finish. And the next thing I just looked at my phone afterwards and he'd sent a text saying, sorry, the meeting was on the way back to where I live and I'm gone. And that was it. That was it. And I couldn't believe that someone's sole purpose was to bring these books in. I just could not get my head around it, Max. I couldn't, And so then I got on Facebook and I said, well, I was really sorry about that because I thought we had a connection because I thought I've got to see this thing through to the bitter end, because it's just too bizarre for words. So I said that. And then he wrote back and he said, oh no, he said, sorry, I like you as a friend, but that's it. And that was it. So anyway,
By the way, Margaret, what were you, the questions that you said you had never even thought to ask the first that you were reading? What book was it? This white book?
I think it was the Dornhouse Testament. The Dornhouse Testament. Yeah. It was the Dornhouse Testament. Yeah, because for some reason, and this is why I know it's Bhagavan, for some reason, I always felt that just the ascending energy from the spine was not the whole story. And yet, anything that I ever read about the phenomena only talked about this ascending energy from the base of the spine.
And that's what you were dealing with as a Kundalini teacher?
Yeah.
And what for those who don't know or hadn't had that experience, what was going on in the body when you were practicing Kundalini yoga?
it's a phenomenon, Max. I don't really talk about it, because people get fascinated with the phenomena, and that's why I stopped in some ways teaching it, because as Bhagavan says, it's a source of fascination, and it shouldn't be, because it's still in the realm of experience. It's still in the subtle realm of experience. And so I did feel that it wasn't it, but I couldn't work out, because everybody, that is why I started to teach it, because I thought, well, this is what is supposed to be the epitome of the spiritual path, is this experience, and then to read Bhagavan say, actually it's not, that was just like the relief that kind of flooded through me, in terms of, it's really not, it's really not. And yet there are so many books, and when I did so what I did then was,
Why
because
did you feel like it wasn't, when you've been hearing that this is the purpose of spiritual life, and you're having blissful, spine energy experiences, what about that wasn't sufficient to you?
it didn't change my state of consciousness.
Okay.
I was still the same one. I still had arguments, fights. I was still a bitch. It didn't change one thing about my understandings, my spiritual understandings. Nothing, really nothing. I'm hugely grateful, because it was 1999, Max, so that's a long time ago, and I remember hearing once that it takes 14 years after you have a kind of an experience like that for it to be integrated back into your consciousness. And when I did the conference, particularly on Kundalini matters, a lot of people got in touch with me who don't have good experiences with the energy, and that was why I put on the conference, because I wanted to try to find out the triggers. What are the triggers for this? And so how can you help somebody to have a safe Kundalini experience? And that's why I feel, it was Bhagavan that I'm incredibly fortunate to have had as easy an experience of that as I could. So as I did, rather. So so it's not something I don't dwell on it. I don't speak about it. I don't want to. I'd rather talk about how Bhagavan found me, really, rather than get into that, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course. So fast forward to this gentleman left 2 books for you and then disappeared, and so you have the Knee of Listening and the Dawn Horse Testament in your apartment.
That's right. And so then that was the time I was doing the putting on the conference. So I had to go through with the conference because I had people booked, I had 6 speakers booked from all over the world to come and speak. I had the Brighton Dome booked as a venue to do it. I had, there was no question that I would cancel, because this happened in September 2012. And I had the conference going in April 2013. So it was just too short a notice to pull everything. So I had to continue to do that, which I did do. And alongside that, then I got in touch with Anne Henderson. This guy had left a little card on in the book. And so I got in touch with Anne Henderson, and she told me about a devotee here in Brighton who was here. And David Houghton. And I got in touch with David, and I owe David so much, because he had the patience of a saint with me. I really, because I was going in there, I had this identity as a Kundalini yoga teacher, and every Sunday he'd send me a text, or most Sundays he'd send a text and he'd say, I'm going to show a video, you're welcome to come. And I looked forward to those Sundays. And I remember the first time that I didn't get a text or it cancelled, and there was something went kind of funny in me, and I was like, yeah. And those Sundays were just so wonderful. And I'd walk back from the sea and I'd think about whatever it was I'd watched, and it just felt really heart happy, so heart happy. But on the other hand, I was also on record as saying, you don't have a guru. And also I, had put on this conference on Kundalini, people were looking at me in that way. So being a devotee was just out of the question. I wasn't going to do it. There was just too much loss of face. Every time I thought about it, I just went hot and cold. And also, I rationalized that actually I was reading all the books, I was looking at YouTube, I was a devotee, I didn't have to get initiated. And that was where my stand was. I was really clear about that.
What was the feeling, your first reading books, watching videos, what was it that was attracting you to Adidas at those very early stages?
When he says, I don't offer you a technique, I offer you a relationship. That really was the first thing, because up to then, all I had done was techniques, and they hadn't worked and they hadn't shifted anything. There were glimpses, you could have glimpses, but fundamentally nothing shifted. And when he said, I don't offer you technique, I offer a relationship, that was for me what made the huge difference, because I could see that the techniques didn't work, and that was it. And also his insistence on, don't get hung up on spiritual phenomena. He was the only one that ever said that. Everybody else is looking for that. Everybody else wants that. He was the one that came out and said, no, don't, there it's a trap, or it doesn't give you what you think, and all of that. And it was like, yes, it was just incredible.
Were you
but I was
attraction to Adidas' presence or his person, the one that was offering the relationship, or did that connection not happen at that point?
No, the connection first was his word. The connection really first was his word. The form, no, that I didn't. I went through that phase of, he's a great teacher, he has a great teaching, but the form and the heart recognition at that level didn't for a while. But I do remember the day that it did happen. I suddenly looked at a photograph of him and my heart just went like that. And that was the heart recognition, but that came later. That was not immediate. The immediate was his word.
When you did look at that photograph, and when was that? Was that years after you first read the Dawn Horse Testament, or?
No, I don't think so. No, it wasn't, because then I read The Knee of Listening. I read the book that was kept for me, and I read it in super quick time, and it wasn't. I would say it maybe 6 months into going to David every Sunday, and drip, thinking about it, and really immersing myself.
And this was 2013, you said? This was 2013?
This was 2013.
So did it matter to you that Adidas wasn't physically alive at that time?
No, because the nuances, the minutiae of things that he said and wrote, I just trusted. I absolutely trusted. That's what, what he said was true in my own experience. It wasn't true in things that I had read, or it was true in my own experience. And that's what really did it. But I didn't want to be a devotee, Max, because of the loss of face. I really didn't. And so one night I had a dream, and I'm in my kitchen and I'm looking out to sea, and I have a baby on my left shoulder here. And you know, when you have a baby on your left shoulder, you can't see the face of the baby. So I leaned back to look and see who the baby's face, and it was Adida. And I shot up, bolt upright in bed. I was, this doesn't happen to me. I was frightened. This was just a bit too much, you know. I couldn't, yeah, I still remember just, you know, it's just something about the vulnerability. You know, I love children. I always feel more comfortable around, you know, babies and that. And the fact that I had to do something, you know, I had to go back and look and see. It just broke me. It really undid me. And I thought, okay, I will do 3C. That's all I'll do. I will do 3C. That's it. Nothing else. So I rang up David Houghton and I said, okay, I said, I'm ready. I will be 3C. That's it. I said, but I want it very low key.
For those who aren't formal devotees that don't know what 3C is, Adida established 4 different congregations of practice. So there's the first congregation is the more advanced, mature level of practice, when there's a transcendental spiritual process that goes on, and it really requires a lot of adaptation to discipline, to meditation. The second congregation is kind of an adaptation process that most people in Adidam are in. That's the largest congregation. And there's a third congregation, which is less kind of discipline required. People are still allowed to have formal relationships with other teachers, I believe. And it's people who are more approaching Adida are considering. And then the fourth congregation is actually for those who are, it was created for Aboriginal cultures, people who are from traditional cultures, like Fijians, for example, who can still have a relationship with Adida but maintain the integrity of their traditional culture. So that's what the 3C or third congregation is.
Yeah, and that's why I chose 3C, because I could still continue to do the transformational self-development that was really still important to me, and I could still have a pint or a glass of lager, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed having a drink at that time, and I didn't want to give either of them up. So I thought, right, you know, this is the best way for me. And so I said, but I want it to be low key because I am quite shy.
Was this before or after you saw that picture of Adida and your heart leapt out at it?
God, that's a good question. I think it's afterwards. I think it was afterwards. I think the heart recognition that had come at that point, because I had been fighting. I had been resisting, you know, being a devotee. And I think that's when it came.
I don't want to harp on this too much, but I'm
no,
really
go ahead.
Curious, because there's nothing that I would rather be doing than looking at a picture of Adida. I mean, it might, you know, to the outsider, it might seem utterly insane, but there's something that happens when you recognize Adida, and it's a miraculous unfolding, where even just a picture of him is so unbelievably attractive and is transparent to who he is as a reality. And it's just, there's nothing more attractive than that. And sometimes, like you said, it might take a while for you to, whatever happens that allows the receptivity to occur. And it's different for everyone. Some people, it might be more immediate. Some people it might take a little bit longer, but once it happens, it doesn't, like, the process doesn't stop.
No.
And Adida even said that if a person is truly available, they could look at a photograph of him once and be enlightened, because he is entirely reality itself all the time. And we don't recognize reality itself ever because of what he calls the self-contraction, right? And so why would we recognize him as reality? What's different about all arising reality versus Adida reality? And he that's the function of the guru, to incarnate that, to create a focal point agency for that. And so when the more the contraction is undone, the more available we are, the more we recognize that, first we're attracted to Adida's physical form, and it becomes more and more transparent to reality itself, to who he
is,
to everything, including us, actually are. So it's an extraordinary gift for that reason. But it's always really interesting to me, because the core of the relationship in very tangible relationship, and Adida talks about the turning to his bodily human form. It's a devotional relationship to his form before it becomes, in due course, transcendental spiritual relationship. And the devotional relationship comes from sighting him. He talks about the process of sighting and listening to his word, and sighting his bodily human form. And then there's he talks about hearing, which is or most fundamental self-understanding, when you can be responsible for the self-contraction. There's another process called, he uses the term seeing, which is recognizing who Adida is, recognizing reality. It's a spiritual process of actually transmitting himself into the body of the devotee. But the fundamental thing is that attraction, that heart attraction. And it's I just love hearing about what people feel when they see a photograph of Adida, and their heart spontaneously responds to it.
Yeah, I think my heart was quite protected because of my past with that Buddhist teacher. I couldn't allow myself to kind of get attracted to the form because it was a bit too close, I think. Whereas his word, was a more gentler thing. And then as the months, went by from when were we, April 2013 to the end of August, when I took my 3C vow, there was a general melting, and then there was enough of, as you say, the self-contraction becomes loosened, through the process of whatever mode of recognition you have of whatever of his agencies, whether it's his word or his image or his form, that one way is the beginning, and then the others come, sort of after that, or whatever. I don't really know why. But so I went up to London. We had Ashley Road, an ashram up there. And it turns out, for something that I wanted to be low key, Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta was in town, and she was in London. And so it was decided that I would have my initiation by Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta. So I thought, well, this is great, something I wanted low key. We're going to have everybody there.
Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta is one of the members of the Ritura Sannyasin order, which is the most senior formal renunciate order of Adidam. So the Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta and Ritura Dhammakonda Sukhapur are in that renunciate order. They're senior devotees in Adidam, and they're the most exemplary practitioners who spent most of their lifetimes in very intimately in Adida's company serving. So that's who Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta is.
And it was a beautiful ceremony. I felt the love and the support of the other devotees, which also was very new for me as well, because I had been very much a loner on the spiritual path. So to have a community where I did feel that support was really lovely. And it was a really nice ceremony. And I kept the flowers. I pressed some petals that Ritura Dhamma Nadikanta gave me. But what was really interesting for me after it was, it was a beautiful ceremony. And I was just on the way back, I was traveling home by train in Victoria, and I was just on the train, and I was thinking back over the day, and suddenly this energy came right down, and I had never experienced that before, and I just wondered whether, you know, when you make a commitment to something, you know, when you commit, that could be what happens. And I never committed to anything, even though I was, you know, Buddhist, and I never really committed. This is the first time that I'd ever committed to anything. And I thought that was that descent of energy that I felt, that really, I just felt this sense of contentment, this real happiness and contentment. And I just thought, oh, you know, maybe that's what happens when people make their vows at the altar, you know, when they get married. I didn't know, I'd never experienced that. So I didn't know it was Bhagavan, you know, so I just kind of dismissed it a little bit, you know, because I didn't know what it was. I just it felt it. And yeah, and so then after that, life just changed. You know, being a devotee is just, it's hard to explain it. You know, it's everything became simpler, happier. I was just happy. I was happy. It was so amazing. And yeah, and then I knew then that I would be 2C. It wasn't going to be a question of whether, it was just a question of when, because of the shift. The thing is, and you'd know this, Max, as well, when you've had a life and then you make a big change and you have another life, you can see the difference in that life, if that makes sense. You know, that things before I became a devotee, you know, were difficult. Suddenly they weren't anymore, you know. And even like meditation, you know, to be able to turn to Bhagavan, you know, his bodily form, and not do the meditation techniques that I, you know, always did, was such a, you know, such a relief. And it was just happy. I was really happy. And so then I thought, well, 2C, you know, I was feeling the calling to go to 2C. But again, you know, if you look at my background, you know, nearly, you know, 10 years of Buddhism, and 6 years of transformational self-development, and then 3 years of Kundalini yoga, you know, I was known as being very spiritually fickle. You know, I was just known out there as, you know, she just doesn't stick at anything, you know. And so I was a bit like, oh, is this the same thing, you know? Is it really, you know? And I thought the only way to really know for sure is to go on retreat to Adidar Samraj ashram, their ashram in Fiji.
Mhm.
I thought, if I can go there and I can do 14 days or whatever it is, just pure devotion with Bhagavan, and not go completely mad, then, you know, then it is my right calling. And so in 2015, that's where I found myself over in Fiji at that retreat. It was very funny, because I didn't realize, you know, that that I would be the only 3C there. You know, I mean, anybody I asked about, you know, going on retreat, oh yeah, you know, public people go there, you know, everyone goes there. You know, I was kind of sold it that, you know, it was this place where everyone goes. So I was like, fine, you know, I'll
Was this
go.
a major celebration time, like Guru Purnima or Adidas birthday?
When it was for Purnima, Gurudev Purnima. Yeah, that was when I was going to cover that.
The one time I went to nighttime, but in 2019 it was Purnima as well.
Did you? Yeah, in
Yeah, really
2019.
incredible full time.
Wow.
And a better time to go to Fiji for the first time, because it's their winter there, so it's not as
That's
oppressively hot.
exactly, that was another factor of it, because I don't do hot weather, and I just, you know, no, that seemed to be the best thing. And so, yeah, I went and I arrived there, and I didn't know anything, and I was in this dorm, and I suddenly dawned on me, oh my God, they're all 2C. I'm the only 3C here, you know. And it was just, it was an amazing retreat, but it was, I learned such a lot, you know. I shared this dorm with this girl, and she was in the bed next to me, and there was we had a stool, you know, and it's a bit of a strange story, but she kind of moved out, and I took her stool because I thought, well, she's gone over to another place to sleep because somebody was snoring and she couldn't sleep, so she left. So I took the stool, and I thought, well, this is great, I'll have this. So anyway, then something happened, and she came back, and she said to me, she said, that's my stool. And I said, is it? I said, did you bring it from the country that you came from? And she said, no, I took it from the bathroom. And I said, well, then it's sort of communal, isn't it? And you sort of left, so I have it now. And I didn't think, I thought, that's finished as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, I then went off, and then when I came back, I saw that she had taken everything that was on the stool, laid it on my bed, and took the stool back. Max, anger was never like, I had never experienced such anger in my life. I thought, I am going to just kill this, but I really am. And then I just thought, oh, bugger, and then immediately I heard chill, just chill, just chill. And I thought, okay, what will I do here? And I said, I thought, I won't say anything. I said, but if she does say something to me, I'll tell her the impact it had on me and how angry I was about it, and I was really contracted about it. But then when I went into Temple Adida, I saw this same devotee working, putting along nice, the way they do the decorations for the things. And my heart went out, and I thought, oh, she didn't even get lunch, she's just doing this service. So I completely forgot, I was completely washed until that evening back in the dorm. And she says to me, oh, maybe you can ask somebody to, if they can give you half their shelf. And that was it then. I was just like, you have no idea how angry I was. You've got no idea when I saw what you had done. So there were all these kind of lessons that I got about my own patterns and my own things. But I just loved it. I loved getting up for the meditation with the others in the morning. I did everything with the 2 C's. I did, except the conscious exercises, because you don't do that.
What were you feeling? Nighttime was it's incredibly the most sacred place. It's a very, very powerful place. What were you feeling in the walking around, or in the meditation halls, or in Temple Adida? What were you feeling, and how was that serving your heart response and your recognition of Adida?
I was feeling him very strongly. The pujas in Temple Adida, with the recitations, in the mornings, they really resonated with me, and I was just happy, very happy. That's just my overriding experience of the retreat. Really happy, and I'm trying to think now, because it was a while ago now, but yeah, I just loved going into open hands, and the presentations, and we had and just just getting a sense of this is where he has done his teaching, and has established the reality way of Adidam and the way of the heart and the brightness. I felt so much up there, just sitting at those brightness gates, just feeling. I'm not very good with words. I feel things. Sometimes I struggle trying to put things into words. But all I know is that at one point I was very feeling very out of it in Temple Adida, thinking everyone here is 2C and I'm 3C. What am I doing here? And then somebody, I don't know who it was, just put an incense, the stick of incense in my hand, and said, go up and wave to Adida, and I did. And that was an amazing, it just felt this just blissful, just energy come in, just really. And it's different, because I've experienced the energy from the spine. This is different. He talks about, his Hridaya Shaktipat, that is from above and beyond, and descent. And that was my experience of it, really and truly. And that was when I sort of recognized what the experience was sitting in the train in Victoria. It was exactly the same. It was exactly the same. There was no difference, and that's why he is here. I have absolutely no no doubts about that. You know, yes, his bodily human form is no longer present, but his self-emergence, his presence, his transmission, you know, that is all I have, because I never sat with him bodily. I have no memories. I have no nothing like that. What I speak about is what's very current and present for me.
Yeah, I had the same experience, 'cause I never saw Adida in the body, and you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish I was there. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
but
so do I.
at the same time, I know that I we don't have the same perhaps liabilities of remembering Adida a certain way, or treating him as a, you know, a social kind of
Yeah,
relation. It's just a more spiritual relationship with him. And that I know there are devotees and who have left the community because of Adidas over time, because of his insistence on being more set apart and being just as he is and related to as reality, and not submitting and being kind of the friendly social figure that he submitted for so many years, and it was difficult for folks. And this is the way it's going to be for him forever now. But you know, certainly it would have been amazing to see him, and he was physically alive as well. I mean, it would have.
yeah, no, totally, totally. I mean, you know, the other thing that really attracted me is, you know, the focus on ego transcending. You know, because I know, you know, how, as Bhagavan says, you know, ego is a clever primate, you know, and I've experienced, you know, quite a bit of sort of ego inflation, and I know the damage it can do, you know. And so, you know, Bhagavan's focus on egoity being the stave in the wheel, and, you know, his reality way being the way of ego transcendence, really speaks to me. Yeah, and is something that I really feel, you know, as devotees, that, you know, speaking more about that is really his path is so important.